I returned home on a Tuesday at 6:47 p.m., dragging a 50-pound suitcase down the hallway of my apartment building. When I opened the door to apartment 4B, which I'd been paying for myself for 4 years, the first thing I heard was my sister Danielle's voice telling my mom, "Relax, Mom. Valerie is never going to have kids, so this room is basically already mine." She didn't see me, didn't hear me. She was sitting on my green velvet sofa, holding my favorite ceramic mug, the one my Grandma Rose brought me from Santa Fe. Behind her, propped against the wall, was my old phone, the iPhone, one I'd left charging on the dining room table before flying to New York for work 11 days ago. That phone was recording. It had been recording, as I checked later, for 9 hours and 14 minutes. My name is Valerie Miller Davis. I'm 34 years old, an interior architect at a firm in Manhattan, and until that Tuesday, March 12th, I believed my family, my 6 one-year-old mother Carol, and my 6 4-year-old father Richard, loved me just as much as my younger sister. Before I tell you what the rest of that recording said, what my mother responded when Danielle uttered that phrase, and what I found written in a sealed envelope under the bed that was no longer mine, I want you to know what happened when I opened that phone's gallery at 11:52 p.m. Before I tell you what was in that 9-hour recording, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. If your parents moved your sister into your home without telling you, and you discovered they planned to keep it, would you forgive them or cut them off forever? Because what happened next changed everything. This is how I got here, the world before. I grew up in a 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Maplewood, New Jersey, on Sycamore Lane, where Sunday dinners started at 1:15 p.m. Not a minute before, not a minute after, because my mother Carol said that families who eat late are families without structure. There were 4 of us. My father Richard, an accountant with 38 years at the same pharmaceutical company. My mother Carol, a retired elementary school teacher who presided over the PTA at Street, Mark's church. My sister Danielle, 5 years younger than me. And me. Danielle was the pretty one. I don't say that with resentment. I say it as a fact that was repeated at every family gathering, every Christmas photo, every comment from the aunts. Danny got the good looks of the family, my Aunt Linda would say. And my mother would chuckle softly, without correcting her, as she passed me the plate of green beans. The unwritten rules of the house were clear. Valerie is responsible. Valerie studies. Valerie doesn't cause problems. Valerie pays. When I turned 19 and started college, I was already working 2 shifts at a coffee shop near campus, and by 24, I had saved up the down payment for my first apartment. For Danielle, at 29, my parents were still depositing $850 a month for her expenses, even though she lived with her boyfriend in Austin. I never complained. I believed that's how American families loved. The one who can is expected to contribute, the one who can't is supported. There were phrases my mother repeated like prayers. Danielle is delicate. You are strong, my daughter. You can handle it. One day you'll understand that being the older one is a privilege. I would nod, clear the dishes, and drive 2 hours back to my apartment in Brooklyn. One night in December 2022, while washing wine glasses after Christmas Eve dinner, I overheard my mother quietly tell my aunt, "Valerie is fine on her own. She doesn't need what Danielle needs." I didn't understand what she meant then. Now I do. Act 4. The Catalyst. The trip to New York was for an 11-day project, redesigning the lobby of a boutique hotel in the West Village, on Charles Street 47. I left on Friday, March 1st at 7:20 a.m. Before leaving, I placed my iPhone 11 on the dining room table to charge, the rear camera accidentally pointing towards the living room because I'd propped it against a Zaha Hadid book while downloading some photos. I left my spare key with my neighbor Martha, from 4A, in case of an emergency. I told my mother 2 days before I left. I asked her to water my plants on Wednesdays. She said, "Don't worry, honey. We'll take care of everything." What she didn't tell me was that we included moving Danielle into the entire apartment, nor that they would do it on Saturday, the day after my flight, nor that my father would arrive with a rented Ford Transit van and unload 14 boxes, a queen-size mattress, and a cat named Milo that Danielle had adopted 3 weeks earlier, nor that my mother would sit on my sofa with my mug and talk about me as if I no longer existed. 2 months earlier, I met my neighbor Martha, 72 years old, a widow, a retired seamstress. It was because I found her in the hallway carrying 2 bags of groceries from the corner store. I offered to help her up. She looked at me with honey-colored eyes and said, "Honey, you live alone here. Who takes care of you?" No one had asked me that in years. That night, she left a container of pot roast and a hand-embroidered napkin with my initials, VM, at my door. She didn't ask for anything in return. She told me she had a daughter in Seattle who called her on Sundays. She said, "Women who live alone take care of each other." I put the napkin in my kitchen drawer. Without knowing it yet, I had just met the person who was going to save me. Act 5. Rising Conflict. On Tuesday, March 12th, at 6:47 p.m., I dropped my suitcase by the entrance. Danielle stood up from the sofa, my mug in her hand, and said, "Oh, Val, you're back early. I thought it was tomorrow." I didn't run, I didn't scream. I walked to the dining room table, picked up my iPhone 11, and silently checked the gallery. Danielle kept talking. "Mom and Dad said that while you're traveling so much, I could stay here. There's more space here than in Austin." I closed the phone. I asked her, my voice exactly the same as always. "How many days have you been here?" she said. 11. I called my mother at 7:22 p.m. I asked her if she knew. She said, "Honey, don't be dramatic. Your sister needed a break from Andrew, and you, well, with your busy life, you wouldn't even notice." I said, "Mom, it's my apartment." She said, "Valerie, it's family. Besides, why do you need so much space if you're never going to start one?" I hung up. I didn't cry. I went to the kitchen, took the embroidered napkin from the drawer, and folded it 3 times. On Wednesday, March 13th, at 10:15 a.m., my father arrived. He brought an envelope with $1,500 in cash, placed it on the dining room table, and said, "Honey, this is for your sister's rent for 3 months. Your mom and I think you can rent her the small room. It's a solution for everyone." I looked at him, then at the envelope. I said, "Dad, I didn't rent this apartment. I bought it 4 years ago." He said, "Well, but family is family. Danielle is going through a tough time." I asked, "And I'm not?" He fell silent, picked up his hat, and left. On Thursday, March 14th, at 4:30 p.m., my mother arrived unannounced with my Aunt Linda. They sat on the green sofa, both of them, like a tribunal. My aunt said, "Valerie, you're being selfish. Your sister is depressed. Your mother is suffering, watching you two fight." My mother added, "If you kick Danielle out, you'll break my heart. Think carefully before making a decision you'll regret." I asked them, "Are you asking me to give my house to my sister?" My mother replied, "We're asking you to be the older daughter you've always been." I stood up, walked to the door, opened it, and told them, "I don't want to be that daughter anymore." They left. That night at 11:04, Martha knocked on my door. She brought a bowl of rice pudding. She looked at my face and didn't ask anything, just said, "When you're ready, honey, tell me." I sat with her in the hallway on a wooden bench and told her everything. She listened for 52 minutes without interrupting once. Finally, she said, "You have the recording. Use it wisely, not in anger." On Friday, March 15th, at 9 a.m., Danielle was still in the room. I handed her an envelope with a printed sheet inside a formal eviction notice, drafted by attorney Sarah Peterson, recommended by Martha, with a 7-day deadline. Danielle screamed, "This is crazy. I'm calling Mom." I told her, "Call her." I closed my bedroom door. I breathed. Act 6. The climax. On Sunday, March 24th, at 1:15 p.m., the sacred hour, I arrived at the Maplewood house for family dinner. I wore a simple black dress and had a USB drive in my pocket. Everyone was there. My parents, Aunt Linda, Uncle Tom, my cousins, and Danielle, who had moved back in with my parents 3 days earlier. My mother served pot roast. My father blessed the table. When dessert arrived, I pulled out my laptop, placed it in the center of the table, connected the USB, and said, "Before you cut the cake, I want you to hear something." The recording began at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, March 2nd. It was my mother's voice, crystal clear, telling Danielle, "My daughter, you stay calm. Valerie won't find out until it's too late. And if she does, Your father and I will convince her. That girl does whatever I tell her, always has. Then Danielle's voice. What if she doesn't want to, Mom? And my mother laughing. Then we'll tell her she's acting like a bitter old maid without kids. That always works with her. Valerie is never going to have kids, so this room is basically already mine. Then my father. Carol, calm down. Valerie isn't stupid. And my mother. Richard, Valerie has been doing what I say for 34 years. She's not going to change now. There was an 11-second silence. I counted them. My Aunt Linda dropped her fork. My 6-year-old cousin Kevin looked down. My mother turned red and said, "That's edited." My father closed his eyes. Danielle started to cry. My Uncle Tom, who almost never speaks, said softly, looking at my mother, "Carol, it's not edited. It's your voice." I closed the laptop, stood up, grabbed my bag, and told my mother without raising my voice. You stopped loving me the day you decided I was the strong one. Today, I'm giving you that responsibility back. I walked to the door. My 2-year-old cousin Sarah ran and hugged me in the hallway. She whispered in my ear, "Auntie, I love you." I left. I didn't look back. Act 7. The consequences. That same night, at 10:47 p.m., my cousin Kevin uploaded a 4-second edited audio clip of the recording to TikTok with my permission, titled, "What My Aunt Said to My Cousin." Unaware of the camera. By midnight, 4,200 views. By Friday, March 29th, 8.1 million. The comments flooded in. Women telling identical stories, older daughters. The strong ones, the ones who pay, the ones who endure. A woman in Dallas wrote, "I was the Valerie of my house for 40 years. Today I learned that you can let go. Thank you." It had 94,000 likes. On Tuesday, March 26th, at 11 a.m., St. Mark's Church, where my mother presided over the PTA, issued a statement informing that due to personal reasons, her participation was temporarily suspended. 3 of her colleagues stopped responding in their WhatsApp group. My father received a call from his boss, asking for prudence on social media. Danielle closed her Instagram of 18,400 followers. I didn't post anything. Martha brought me chicken noodle soup and said, "The truth doesn't need help to walk." Act 8. The Reckoning. On Saturday, March 30th, at 9 a.m., I published a single text on my Instagram. No photo, no filter. My name is Valerie Miller Davis. I am 34 years old. My whole life, I was the daughter who needed nothing because I was the strong one. I discovered that being strong meant being invisible. This is not an attack on my family. It is the moment I stop carrying it alone. I will not give interviews. I will not ask for forgiveness. I will simply live the life that was mine from the beginning. The post reached 2.6 million views in 18 hours. 89% of the comments were supportive. 11% called me an ungrateful daughter. My mother published a 620-word statement talking about the value of family forgiveness and the consequences of exposing private matters. My Aunt Linda, to everyone's surprise, commented below, "Carol, what you said in that recording, you said it, and you said it many times before in front of me. Enough." My cousin Kevin later uploaded a photo of a notebook belonging to my grandma Rose, who passed away in 2019, where she had written in her own hand, "Valerie is the pillar of this family, but pillars get tired too. Take care of her." Act 9. The Hidden Revelation. On Monday, April 1st, Martha knocked on my door with a yellow envelope in her hand. She said, "This was for you, honey. Your grandma left it for me 6 years ago when she knew she was sick. She asked me to give it to you when you knew, without anyone telling you, that you didn't have to endure anymore." I sat on the hallway floor. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a 3-page handwritten letter in blue ink, dated July 14th, 2018. It read, "Valerie, my dear girl, one day you will discover that your mother has been using you as a vessel, pouring all her weight onto you because she knows you won't break. I saw it since you were 7 and asked permission to cry. I want you to know 3 things. First, your strength is not your debt, it is your gift, and no one has the right to collect it from you. Second, if you ever need a family, Martha from 4A was my best childhood friend, and I asked her to look after you when I was no longer here. That's why she moved into your building. Third, you are free, honey. You always were. The only thing missing was for someone to tell you. I am telling you. With love, your Grandma Rose. I couldn't get up from the floor for 47 minutes. Martha sat beside me in silence. When I could finally breathe, I looked at her and asked, "You knew?" She said, "Since the first day I saw you carrying those bags." I framed the letter and hung it in the hallway across from the entrance, where I see it every time I come home. Act 10. Resolution and Thesis. Today is March 12th, 2026. Exactly 1 year. I founded a network called Resting Pillars, a support group for older daughters in American families who carried what wasn't theirs to carry. We have 2,340 members in 6 countries. We meet Wednesdays at 8 p.m. via Zoom. Martha bakes cookies for the in-person meetings on the first Saturday of each month. I speak with my mother once every 2 months for 5 minutes, always me hanging up first. With my father, I have lunch on the last Sunday. Without her. Danielle wrote to me 3 weeks ago apologizing. I replied, "Thanks, give me time," and left it at that. My cousin Sarah, now 13, asked me last month while we were eating ice cream in the East Village, "Auntie, do you hate Grandma Carol?" I said, "No, my love. I just learned that loving her doesn't mean letting her hurt me." She looked at me, chewing her spoonful of chocolate. She thought for 2 seconds and said, "That makes sense." She continued eating. Children understand what adults take decades to grasp. Yesterday, I posted a photo of my grandmother's framed letter on Instagram with this text: "Being strong isn't an honor, it's an assignment no one asked you to sign. You can return it whenever you want." 340,000 likes in 14 hours. Among the comments, a woman from Miami wrote, "I'm 47 years old, and today, because of you, I called my sister to tell her I'm not paying her rent anymore. My hands were shaking. Thank you, Valerie." My name is Valerie Miller Davis. I am 34 years old. I learned that family is not measured by the blood you share, but by the silence someone breaks for you when you can no longer break it alone. My grandmother broke hers 6 years after she died. I will spend the rest of my life breaking mine quietly, without resentment, so that other women like me can finally hear themselves. And this time, the ceramic mug from Santa Fe is back in my kitchen. No one uses it without my permission.